Hello, everybody, and welcome to Constellation, where I, Sascha Segan, talk to the stars in the Qualcomm ecosystem. This week has been a very important week for Qualcomm and Snapdragon because this is when we have had our Snapdragon Summit. It's the week when we have announced our big new platforms for 2026, meaning the Snapdragon X2 Elite and X2 Elite Extreme, and the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. And here to talk about them with me is Peter Burns from our compute marketing team and Jerry Chang from our AI marketing team. Hi, guys. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Yep,
Great.
doing great. Just got back from a summit yesterday, actually. So,
still just a touch jet lagged?
yep, that is correct.
Okay, well, I'm gonna show you a couple of things to give people the summit feel who may not have been there. So every year our summit is in Maui, Hawaii, and so first of all, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this.
Awesome.
Yes, I bring home a Maui gold,
Got
and
the
then
pineapple.
I don't know if you guys have been indulging in this.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
just a bit. Just a bit.
That's awesome. Love that thing.
Yeah, so it is not just a great time for technology. It is also a great time for bringing tropical fruit flavored items back to the mainland. So just to get started, we were all in Maui for a week, and we saw these 3 days of amazing presentations from Don McGuire, Cristiano Aman, Alex Katuzian, Kedar Kondap, various of our partners and ISVs, and just to sort of frame it. Now, the first thing that Cristiano was talking about was the ecosystem of you, and he really seemed to be all in on the concept of wearables and on the concept that we are going to have multiple devices dealing with each other on our bodies. And guys, what kind of opportunities do you think that potentially opens up, especially for developers, but for partners in general? And how should partners start thinking about the next couple of years as we go into this philosophy?
Jerry, you want to take this one?
Oh yeah, so Sasha, I think right, going back to that what you just said, right? So I think let's talk about the concept for a second, right? So it's really I think if you guys watch Cristiano's keynote, right? I think even till today, right? Like smartphone is like the center of like everything, right? So you have your smartphone, that's your primary device, and it connects to like your laptops, right? Your wearables, like Sasha was just saying, like your XR glasses, all of those devices, right? So I think what's going to shift, tremendously. This is really that tipping point is that sender that's supposed to be smartphones is now turning into your AI agent. So I think this opens up a lot of opportunities for developers out there because it's not just a single device that's in the center of that ecosystem, right? It's this virtual AI agent that's going to be in the center, and the smartphone now is actually outside of that loop, right? It's that center, right? That you can actually develop on, right? Having like all of your devices talk to each other, right? So yeah, Sasha, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess sort of the layman's question there is, what are you then writing to? Are you writing to a smartphone and a PC and a range of IoT platforms? Are you writing to a cloud service that then addresses all of them? Is maybe what we were seeing with anything LLM at the
Oh yeah.
show, and we'll get into that in a second,
Yep.
kind of the beginning of the way this works?
Oh yeah. So I think there could be a lot of ways to program this, right? But I think the mindset should be shifting into this one single agent, because if you think about what consists of the agent, right? a LLM model of your choosing, right? And obviously all that is running on the device, right? And then there's the input, right? Is it the latest ASR, model like what NVIDIA just announced, right? Parakeet. That's one of the latest and greatest ASR models. You pair that with your LLM, right? And now the LLM actually sees all of your devices, right? From a chipset level. So your smartphone, Snapdragon is actually talking to your laptop Snapdragon and other devices, right? Like your XR glasses, your car, right? Obviously, we made car chips as well, right? And the agent sees all of that. How do you stitch them together, right? And start having them talk to each other with the LLMs that's built in, with all the agentic functions that this chip is going to support, right? You'll be able to control your car, and the car will be able to control your laptop, right? Throughout this single agent. So I believe the future is actually, for developers to actually, code this agent, right? Or develop on this agent, adding more features into it. So all
So
of that can be, one big ecosystem, right?
so yeah, coding and creating a multi-device agent.
Exactly.
Peter, we had Stevie Bathich from Microsoft up on
Yep.
stage. And I
Yep.
feel like what Jerry is talking about kind of connects to some of the themes in his conversation, right?
Absolutely. I think there's nobody better to clearly explain it than Stevie, and it was a really a delight for everyone who was there to hear him kind of speak about how this evolution is happening between Windows and, of course, Snapdragon chipsets across devices, right? And the ability to do more on your PC. I think we talked a lot about the new capabilities of the chipset, and what Stevie offered was that future vision of how developers can leverage that hardware, right? It's not just about the capability and the tops, right? Capability of the hardware spec, but it's about how you can get all of these things running together and leveraging a co-pilot of co-pilots, if you will, to orchestrate all of these different experiences across your PC, and then, of course, interfacing with the other devices in your ecosystem.
One thing I was kind of amazed by was when he was talking about Phi-414b, which is a 14 billion parameter model that Microsoft has developed that he says performs better on some benchmarks than some cloud-based OpenAI models. And Microsoft has nothing against OpenAI. They are not an anti-OpenAI company. So this was coming from honesty. And now that is running on our NPU now, right?
That's right.
Have either of you guys tried that out?
I've not. No. How about you, Jerry?
I haven't. Like I just got back, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to work amazing.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think the other big news was Windows ML. What they announced with Windows ML this past week so you're going to start seeing more and more of these tools coming to life here. So really excited for that as well.
Yeah, I feel like we're starting, like, one thing that excites me here, and I think should excite developers, is how much we're starting to put together. Maybe it's still a jigsaw puzzle of APIs, but the APIs are a heck of a lot better than they were last year. Now that we have Windows ML and we have LiteRT and we have Edge Impulse in the IoT world, we're starting to put together a usable constellation of ways people can create these multi-device ML experiences, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think what was I wanted to add that I think what is even more astonishing to me is if you look at how much power is being consumed in the data centers, right? And simultaneously how much more capable the chips at the edge are becoming to run these larger models, and to do so simultaneously while reducing latency and having immediate feedback, that immediacy of results. you can kind of see that there's this capability untapped that is developing. It's a perfect storm, if you will, of bringing all of these AI capabilities more and more so to the edge. And you can imagine higher performance, lower power consumption. So there's a lot of great benefits that I think people are starting to understand of where this opportunity is heading.
I think for developers, the number one thing I always have to call out is lower cost. That a lot of developers are getting slammed on their API costs right now. As they are doing more and more development with AI, they are finding that they are sinking more and more money into these cloud APIs. And every query that you move to the edge is something that you haven't charged to your cloud API.
Yeah, that's a huge benefit. Yeah, I think we've seen so many examples of that, and more are saying, "Hey, how can I lower my costs?" And this is a perfect way to do that.
So, so going to some of the stuff going on with the individual products that we announced. We did show off some. We showed off some great. We'll start with the phones. So sorry, Peter, you still got 10 minutes before you can really shine. We'll start with the phones. We had some really interesting AI ISVs up there on stage. And also, Jerry, you wanted to talk a little about Nexa, which was that mentioned at Summit? Like, was I just not in that session?
Yeah, it actually was in Vanessa's session during AI is the new UI, a presentation. So Nexut is one of, I don't know how much time I have, but Nexut is amazing. And Sasha, I'll kind of give the audience a little bit of background on that.
Okay, so it's
going back,
Nexa.ai, right?
Nexa.ai.
Nexa.ai.
Yep,
Okay.
correct. But let's go back to the other ISVs that we talked about. And you want to talk about Page AI, because I think we have an interesting story to tell for the audience, right? So Sasha, you actually found this app called Layla on the Google Play Store, and you were texting me one day and said, "Hey Jerry, you got to check this out," because they are actually using our NPU to do image generation. So I click on the link. They actually had a blog all about how much faster you can run Stable Diffusion on our NPU, and we download the app. It's actually more than just image generation. They have a full-blown like LLM, models running on device, and and the way they kind of build the app's very interesting as well, right? It's all around privacy, right?
Basically, what was happening was that there was this guy there's this guy George, okay, who was as fascinated with on-device AI as we are, and he basically, I mean, what it feels like is that he looked at every open source on-device AI GitHub project, and he said, how can I pile all of these into something that runs efficiently in my phone?
Yep.
And he did it. And he combined Stable Diffusion and GGUF-based LLM models and executorch-based LLM models, which nobody else was doing, and long-term memory and plugins and agentic, and like he was just like going absolutely whole hog on every concept that anybody in the open source world was working with in Edge AI. Okay, you take it back over.
No, you're absolutely right. I was just trying to get there, but so yeah, George, our good friend right now, right? So yeah, he built this app, like you, Sasha, you just said. He added all these, on-device AI goodies and all the latest and greatest features, right? He built Layla. So we call him and say, hey, George, are you willing to work with us and build a brand new app that actually has more of these agentic features, right? Or something that can even leverage more of the Qualcomm NPU goodness. So he actually did that. So we've been working with him for months, and he created something called Page AI. We actually announced this just a couple days ago on stage at Snapdragon Summit. So George and I hit the stage. We actually did a live demo for all the audience down there. And again, going back to what's super cool, right, is such like you said, first of all, executorch models. So PyTorch, right, obviously own a project from Meta. they actually added a new runtime called Executorch. So for the audience out there, this is an amazing tool, right? So I don't know, like, Sasha, how much time we have, but going back to what you just talked about in terms of how do you get to the NPU, right? It's like a maze, right? So like from PyTorch, Onyx to LightRT, Executorch, people have to figure all these things out, right? So what I think what PyTorch is doing for the developer out there is like creating this like direct path through the NPU that is super simple to use. It's going to get like you the best performance because of you don't have all these overheads with all these software that you have to figure out, right? So George actually took Executorch. He figured out how to run things on the NPU. He actually just put it on in the Page AI app. So now, if you go on the Page AI, which by the way is a real app, you can download from the Google Play Store.
Yeah,
Play Store.
PAAGE.ai
Exactly.
on the Google Play Store. It's free. Yep.
Yep. And once you download it, you go to the settings, right? There, you hit LLM. You can actually see our Qualcomm AI Stack logo. So this is our, Qualcomm's all AI software built in one. I guess that's how I would put it. So if you see that logo, it's actually all that model is running on the NPU. It's blazing fast. You guys should definitely check it out. But yeah, this is like one of the gems we found, just or Sasha, you found on a Google Play Store. And now, you're gonna see more of these apps coming, right? And Page is one great example. The other one is anything LLM. So this is not a brand new tool. This is a super popular, I don't know, Sasha, how do we even call the Olamas or LLM studios or
Yeah, I've
anything
been
LLMs?
considering them like LLM development platforms because there's really, there, as you said, it's Olama, LM Studio, anything LLM, and then there's some command line ones like people
Yep.
run llama.cpp at the command line. Cobalt is another one. But those are really it's the LLM development platforms.
Yeah, so LM developed platforms or middleware, I think some of us call that, right? So these are super popular tools, right? So if you have a Windows on Snapdragon PC, go ahead and download these tools. It's amazing. You can run a lot of models on the NPU, but going back to anything LM, right? So Tim, an awesome friend of ours, right? So he's a founder actually of anything LM. So he already has a super popular app on Windows, right? Working with on Snapdragon chipsets. So what he announced at Snapdragon this year is he actually built an Android version of anything LM. So now if you have an Android phone, again, this is live, go and download anything LM. It's the exact same features that you'll get on PC. But what's fascinating about this, right? It's not just another chatbot. So going back to that, ecosystem we were talking about, right? How do we get the chipsets through AI engine to talk to each other? Tim actually built this for us. It's amazing. So what he actually demonstrated on stage, and if you guys haven't seen this, go back to the live stream and check this out. So once you have two apps open, right, from any either your phone or a PC, click on settings. You can actually see the other device, and you can just scan it with the QR code. It's that simple. Once it's connected, right, you'll be able to pick where to inference. So that's like the beauty of this, right? Let's say you're on your phone, you want to run an even bigger, more powerful model. That's
And
really
that's the
not
beginning of the ecosystem of you. When you
exactly.
start choosing on each device where the inference should be going on, and it could be another device in your ecosystem.
Yep. So what Tim showed is, so he had anything LLM on a PC. He actually had Task Manager up, right? So you can see the NPU. So he did something on the phone, asking a question, and then you see the NPU actually lit up on the PC. So this is like truly a brand new way of thinking about AI on the device, right? This is distributed intelligence. You can actually choose where to inference. So this is actually what Tim built, and this is actually coming to everybody.
Now, one thing that I think was in all the demos, and that I really want to emphasize on both phone and PC, is that it feels like with the new chipsets, with the 8 Elite Gen 5 and with the X2 Elite, we are running larger models on the NPU than before. I feel like last year we were
Yep.
saying, run your smaller models on the NPU, run your larger models on the CPU. it feels like now that's shifting, and the NPU is becoming the NPU is becoming a more flexible tool for larger models. Is that a real feeling?
Oh yeah, and I think Sasha, we talk about this from a Qualcomm standpoint, and if you look at the ecosystems as well, right? So smaller models are getting very, very strong, right? So if you look at the benchmarks of these smaller models, even a 3 billion parameter model from any company, right,
Mm-hmm.
versus like a 2-year-old, ChatGPT 3.5,
Mm-hmm.
it's getting on par with those huge models, right? So that's one thing. Smaller models are getting better, but like you said, are we running bigger models? Yes, it's because these new MOE or mixture of expert models
Mm.
and reasoning models, they're getting a little bit bigger. But it's not too big to not be able to run on device, right? But so yes, the NPU actually is more capable of running, these bigger models. And I think going back to A Gen 5, right? This is the new chips that we just announced, or mobile platform. We did a lot of improvements to the NPU to make it, work with bigger models. So for instance, right? So scalar, vector, and tensor accelerators within the NPU, they all got a big upgrade. And this is really designed for bigger LLMs, smarter LLMs like reasoning models, MOE models. We actually made a lot of improvements on those to be able to actually support that. And one big thing that we actually did is 64-bit. So 64-bit, right? Before it was 32. So what that means is the NPU talking to the memory. The path is only 32-bit wide, right? So you can only access 4 gigs of memory at a time. So these models, as we know, Sasha, they're big, right? They're bigger than 4 gigs in terms of size, in terms of parameters. Some of these are actually 8 billion parameter models. 10, 12, or even 20, right? So you actually need 64-bit to, make everything faster. So you have to move data around. So that's all the hardware improvements we did, right, on
And
Snapdragon Elite.
and
Yeah.
now, Peter,
Yeah.
on the X2 Elite side, what were the improvements to the NPU there? And also, can you talk a little about the memory bandwidth improvement on X2 Elite Extreme, which I think also really affects people doing AI programming?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, let me start with some of the advancements in case the audience missed the big news here. So going from X Elite to X2 Elite now, we've brought a brand new 80 TOPS NPU, and we know 80 TOPS is just a spec. I would totally understand. What we are trying to do with that is make it even faster and more flexible. See. X2 Elite being able to handle more models. So we've got compute and next generation NPU hardware and software now available. We're going to support newer models and more complex architecture. So things like mixture of experts, more context length, et cetera. And so the models that are now running on the NPU, we support both state-of-the-art perception and Gen AI models. And we're constantly working with the leading model creators like Microsoft Phi family and Alibaba Qwen family. We've got Meta Llama, Google Gemini, Nano family, OpenAI, OSS, and so many more options to our partners so they can develop and push for that innovation on the edge. We're also, I think you mentioned benchmarks earlier. One of the things we show is just the increasing leadership of our NPU capabilities in terms of pure inferencing speed. We're seeing up to 5 times faster inferencing on the edge versus what you would see in a typical x86 product. It's pretty incredible. So really excited for the opportunity here and what developers are going to be able to start doing with this platform.
So now I also wanted to call out though, because I think it's one of the features in the new platforms.
Memory bandwidth.
Yes,
Yes.
that does not get called out enough.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge increases in speed on memory bandwidth. Obviously that's what's perfect for running agentic AI and that quick communication, those bursty workloads, and really for having things running in the background, right? You can think of all the agentic use cases. Jerry was talking about what George from Page AI did across, connecting all these different experiences. And so, yeah, thinking about your PC and how the PC really, if you think about it, is the multitasking device, right? Many times we're on a phone and we're using one application or we're switching to the next. And with PC, you've got all of these things running simultaneously. So it's really your command center and that intimate knowledge that a PC can have of your work life and all of the projects that you're working on. Whereas, on the phone, of course, like that's also got a lot of the detail that is happening in your life from your calendars. And so for the ability for these two things, these two devices to interconnect and interact, and really pull together these experiences across your devices, that's huge. I would say, like, going back to Maui and what we showed off in not only on the main stage and the elite experiences, but also in the demo rooms. This is probably the first time I've seen every single demo experience show multiple devices in that day and the life, right? I could go on, but I think Sascha, to your original question, is like bringing all of these capabilities together. You're now starting to see this multi-device ecosystem take shape right at the time where the tools and where we're headed with software come together in a really meaningful way.
So before we move out of the AI discussion, because there are a lot of aspects, especially to X2 Elite, that have been improved that are not the NPU. But before we move out of that discussion, we did mention Nexa.ai, and Jerry did not get to explaining what it was, and I need him to explain what it is.
Oh yeah. So I'm thinking in terms of how we announced this in sequence, right? So Nexa actually was another partner we actually announced at Summit with Vinesh. So Nexa, right? Like going back to what I was just saying, right, Sascha? Like how complex it is, right, to go from a framework to the NPU. It's like I said, it's like a maze. So these guys, one of the smartest groups I ever met, right? They actually figured all that out. They said, all right, we know how to access your NPU via Qualcomm AI Engine Direct, aka QNN, right? So once they figure it out, they threw all of that away. They're like, all right, you know what, guys, don't use any of that. We actually built something called Nexa ML. This is an inference engine created by Nexa AI. All you have to do is, if you have Windows on Snapdragon machine, download this library. It's a one-click SDK install. Once you have it, it's a one-line code, literally one line. I tried it, copy and paste one line of code. You can actually run a lot of models on the NPU directly. This is what they figured out, right? So again, an amazing tool for developers. If you want to build anything, that has LLMs on Windows on Snapdragon PC.
So is this purely for Windows on Snapdragon? Does this also apply to phones? Does this apply to any of our other platforms?
Oh yeah, it applies to mobile as well, right? So again, going back to that Nexa ML, this is really kind of the foundation they created, right, for development on phones, PCs, actually all the Qualcomm platforms that have an NPU. So this is a groundbreaking thing for developers, right? Now you don't have to really figure all that out. There's a one SDK download. You can actually start building your apps. And the cool thing about these guys is they offer day zero support to a lot of these cutting edge models. So the latest Quinn VL, this was just announced a couple of days ago, state of the art, multimodal, vision model, right? One of the hottest models right now. They have day zero support running on our NPUs. Embedded Gemma, right? And been, one of the embedding models. They offer day zero support as well, among a bunch of other models that have running native on the NPU. This is one SDK, to support all backends, right? So going back to your question, Sascha, yes, they actually have a mobile app as well that they're going to announce very soon. So actually talk about this on stage at Snapdragon Summit. So again, if you look at what these partners are doing, right? They're actually building for the ecosystem. It's not just about one platform anymore. It's about laptops, PCs, wearables, automotive. They're trying to figure all that out. And going back to what we just talked about, right? Building that single AI agent that can talk to all these devices is the future.
And I think there's a lot of opportunity for developers there, and developers need to be thinking bigger in terms of the device universe that they're addressing.
Yep,
That they're not addressing just one platform, they're not addressing just one size.
exactly.
They can potentially be addressing 5 devices that people own all at once.
Yep.
Now, moving away from AI, onto the hard questions for Peter, because GPU. The number one criticism of the Snapdragon X Elite, I would feel like the number 1, 2, and 3 criticisms all had to do with aspects of either GPU hardware or software.
Yep.
What has happened with the new platform? How is that changing?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm going to address this just like I did with the NPU. We're starting from a new integrated GPU, new hardware, new architecture, massive improvements in performance on the GPU. And mind you, this is an integrated GPU, so these are super power efficient, but a massive leap from the previous gen. We increased performance over 2x. And so, yeah, a lot of great new capabilities in terms of performance. We even showcased some real world gaming experiences that are also experiencing over 2x performance increases. So that hardware improvement is also translating directly into performance. Now, we're not positioning ourselves as a gaming platform. We know this is not necessarily your go-to device if you're a hardcore gamer, but we also know that we do need to support gaming. And so we were really pleased to see this development and also be able to showcase it, the direct impact that it's having on gameplay. And these are AAA titles in here, so we're excited to see that those number of games increasing on the platform. So more and more that is becoming supported. We also easy anti-cheat has also been announced, and so we know Fortnite and other games are going to get unlocked, and they're quickly coming on board. So that's awesome, great to see. So many issues we've seen cited on the Discord about Vulkan, and yes, we are working to fix those. Our control panel is another piece that people have been clamoring for. We hear you loud and clear. The Adreno control panel that was rolled out, I think, to devs earlier this year continues to get those improvements, and so we'll continue to see that strengthen, and of course get more and more driver support as we go here. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, I think it's really good to hear that about Vulkan, because I know that devs out there have been frustrated with the Vulkan situation, and to some extent they've just wanted to hear that we hear them. So it's really good to hear that we're working on that. And in terms of graphics driver updates, have we learned from the past year? Is that path going to get a little smoother with the new platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. I think more and more you're going to see updates, and I mean, just in the last year, I know we've talked about this already, but the advancements in terms of at least rolling it out to devs and getting that active feedback, it's so critical to us making those improvements. We know we're kind of in the early stages, but it's advancing quickly, and we're serious about getting all the things that you expect on this platform to work great and really take full advantage of the hardware advancements that we made on the silicon side. So we hear you loud and clear. We're working hard to address this, and can't wait to see where we land when these new products come out in 2026.
So in general, how is the snowball rolling down the hill when it comes to native application development? I know. So those of us who have X Elite PCs, I have 3 here right now, so I would definitely qualify. Those of us who have X Elite PCs know that the experience between Prism and native is at this point relatively indistinguishable. I generally do not know whether I'm running Prism with any given application or not. But when when you look at developers, are developers more adopting those native tools now?
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the ramp of native applications, and there are multiple websites, including our own, that track this sort of data. We could probably put the links in the chat if anyone has those handy. But yeah, you're seeing this massive ramp. And why is that? Well, first of all, we know developers are not going to develop for a platform that has no units in the market. And so the great thing is that we've been seeing our sales, take off pretty strongly. And so what some of the data that's been shared, I think, on our earnings calls and other forums is that we are upwards of 10% share in some of the top markets for devices that are $600 and above. So you really see that ramp. We're also making marketing investments, go-to-market investments in major markets. And so you're probably starting to see our advertising, whether you're watching, live sports or walking through the airports or, walking through Times Square or Piccadilly Circus in the UK. I mean, we are serious about go-to-market. And so you're starting to see these sales ramp significantly, and that's why developers are paying more attention. And you can see that also reflected in just the number of native applications. I think, Sascha, you mentioned that it's very hard to distinguish with the Prism emulation and native, but as the number of devices that grow in market, I think developers are increasingly saying, hey, this is, Qualcomm and Snapdragon platforms are a serious player. We are going to see an increasing number of folks make that switch from x86 platform because they see this is a more modern experience. This is I would equate it to the switch between a flip phone and a smartphone, right? People are used to this old technology and then make the advancements to these new ones, and they're just like, "What? How could I have lived in that other world?" Once you take these devices for a test drive and you see the incredible battery life, the seamless experience, cross devices that we're starting to see, it's kind of a no-brainer. People are making that switch. So as these things are happening, I think more and more developers are making those long-term investments. We've seen a massive increase in investments by our developer partners in incorporating Snapdragon into their roadmaps in a more serious way. And so they're bringing some of those leading features to Snapdragon first. You look at Microsoft with plenty of examples of how they're leveraging AI, not to bring it back to AI again, but all of these new capabilities, right? They're coming out first on Snapdragon. So we're super excited to see the number of native apps grow, and we're super excited to see an increasing number of NPU powered experiences grow across the board. And as you mentioned, in the meantime, there is this Prism emulator. So if developers are just making the switch, there's a lot of great capabilities that will hold you over in the meantime for these end users to continue using your software while you're bringing native to the platform.
Yeah, one thing I really like to tell people about this platform is that basically, yes, there was a chicken and egg problem. There was a big chicken and egg problem that we had when we launched the first Snapdragon X series laptops in May and June of last year, where basically there were relatively few native applications at the time because there were relatively few devices to develop on, and the devices weren't in market. And somebody had to drop the chicken into the chicken coop so it could then lay the eggs. And so that's what we did. And over the past year, anyone who basically the message is anyone who hasn't checked in periodically to this ecosystem has an obsolete view of the ecosystem. And it's not just about the applications that are out there. It's also about the frameworks that are out there. It's about the maturity of those frameworks. It's about the support from developer enablement organizations, like, as I think Nexa counts as one of those, or like PyTorch. All of these pieces have fallen into place over the past year, so that where the Snapdragon X Elite was, honestly, last May, it was kind of an edgy platform to develop for. Not now, it's a much smoother and it's a much more mainstream option, and there's a lot more established. We had Docker on last month, talking about their native product. So it's just a completely different landscape than it was a year ago. And I think it's just really important for us to say how committed we are to the PC space going forward. And that commitment lets developers be confident in us as well. So thing about, I think maybe we can move to some questions if they're out there. But first, before we move to questions, or as we move to questions, I want to diffuse what will always be the biggest question in any of these in any of these conversations. And unfortunately, the answer may not please the questioners, and that is Linux. That's gotta be the top question we get. And it's really a situation where we don't really have a lot of good news, but we also don't have a lot of bad news, right?
Yeah, I'll jump in here, Sasha. So I think there's no technical reason why we can't support Linux. I think, you've even seen some developments there in the past year in terms of capabilities, but I think it's just a matter of focus and where we have to place our bets to start off, right? Once we get this engine humming, things will take shape. So no news, no announcements in terms of Linux at the moment, but yeah, I'm hopeful we'll get there soon.
Yeah, I am actually running. I'm running Ubuntu 25.10 on a Lenovo Slim 7X, which is over there. Ubuntu is doing a lot of good work to enable the ecosystem, but I think there is, once again, a bit of a chicken and egg problem there, where more developers in the Linux ecosystem and in the community need to get their hands on Snapdragon products. And then that ball needs to start rolling further too. So yeah, we aren't trying to stop Linux, which I think is the best thing we can say here. But we are primarily focused on Windows and Android as our central platforms for our two main chipsets. Folks, are there any? Do we have any other questions out there, or should I bump on to some of my other questions?
Sasha, I saw one, I think, about the device pricing. There was I think based on my earlier comment of our market share in 600 plus devices, there was a question about if that was a cutoff. And so I just want to answer that one. Yeah, I don't think it's a cutoff. It's a range. It's a device average selling price, if you will, that we've seen in the first year. But as we continue to launch new platforms, we're widening that price band, if you will. And so, yeah, you will see devices on sale under that. I think I've bought ones for my kids at under that price point, on offer and things like that. So we launched 3-4 platforms in the first year, and the device average selling price, I think it initially started at the high end at $11.99 and above. But as we launched these other platforms in the mainstream tiers, you started to see that price band grow. So Snapdragon X, which is our base platform that we launched in January of this year, that really opened up the price point capabilities. And I think as we move into this next generation as well, you're going to see that range of prices open up, which means more volumes and more units on shelf and more opportunity for developers to address that market share.
This is actually that actually opens up a good question for you too, Jerry, which is so obviously we want people to address 8 Elite Gen 5. We want everyone to buy 8 Elite Gen 5. We want ideally we want the whole world to suddenly throw out their phones and buy 8 Elite Gen 5 phones in a super cycle. But we have a really broad range of platforms, and especially in mobile. And if people are thinking of, what should I be doing with NPU? What should I be doing with agentic? Can our other platforms accomplish those things, if not as well as 8 Elite Gen 5? How broadly do we have NPU capability across the mobile platforms?
Well, you're talking about mobile platforms or like the other segments like automotive, XR, or
Let's start with
wearables?
mobile platforms. Let's say I'm writing an Android app.
Yep. Yeah. So I think so going back to, because it really, what the limitation is, right? It's really about like how big of a model you want to run, right? So if you look at what these amazing developers that build Page AI, anything LM's Android app, right? I mean, these apps you can actually download today on your 8 Elite phone, right? This is, I mean, by no means it's a year old. It's still the latest and greatest, flagship phones. I actually have one right here. This is the Asus ROG phone. This has 24 gigs of memory with, amazing NPU performance. It can actually run basically all the models that was just announced today with Page AI's app, right? So I don't think there's any, big limitation in terms of what the developers can build. These are once you use our, SDKs, or for example, like it just said, Nexa AI's, SDK, it's backwards compatible, right? Obviously, if you're running a 10-year phone, that would be probably some issues, right? But if you're running something that's like 3
I'm
years
thinking
old,
people out there with
absolutely,
even with
yeah.
with 8 Gen 3s, 8S Gen 4s,
Oh yeah.
7 Plus Gen 3s, all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah. So yeah, if you have something that's recent, right? There's no issue for your app to run like smoothly if the model is small enough, or
I think
right. So
actually that is the number one thing to watch out for. And I've actually seen some beginners get a little confused by this on the local Llama subreddit, who are working with phones, which is that really the number one gating factor is RAM. That you have to hold the model in memory. And
Yep.
so what a lot of these lower end phones may have very capable processors.
Yep.
But if they've got 4 gigs of RAM, you just don't have a lot of space to put a model in there.
Yeah, and that's the limitation, right? That I'm pretty sure our viewers are watching around. This is the bottleneck for memory, right? So that's why Peter is mentioning bandwidth, right? So that's one important factor. The other piece is actually how much you can access at once. So that's why we moved to 64-bit, right, for both our platforms. So you can actually see more than just 4 gigs of RAM. We're making all of these improvements, right, to make sure the LMs are running smoothly. So, and going back to the NPU, right, like I said, we made a lot of improvements on the scalar vector intensive accelerator. So we know, like tensor math is extremely important for a lot of, convolutional network use cases, video, image. But when it comes to LLMs, it's actually like the simpler math, which is the scalar and vectors. Because if you think about token generations, kind of a simple thing to do, but because there's so many information you have to process at once, right? Like the scalar and vector cores are so important. That's why we added, more. I think we're up to 12 scalar cores and 8 vector cores for this generation. That's really to kind of address running faster LLMs. So yeah.
Now, speaking of RAM, Peter, is it true that we could potentially have 128 gig X2 Elite systems?
Yeah, I mean the platform is capable of supporting it. Whether how many are out there right now with that many, you'd probably say not too many, but the capability is certainly there. So yeah, it would be really exciting to see what the OEMs decide to spec in their systems. So can't wait.
Actually, here's something that here's something I've heard some developer types ask, which
Okay.
is why don't or why haven't any of our systems yet had socketed or user addable RAM? Is that something that is about the way the boards are built? Is that an OEM choice? Is that something required by the processor? Just if you think about how people may want to sock more memory into their machines.
Yeah, I mean we've seen Microsoft, right, with the Surface products have that capability to add or change RAM, and that was I think wanted by the IT side of the house. And so I think it really depends on who wants it and what the opportunity is. So every OEM is looking at who are they going to sell these products to. Are most of these folks, adding their own memory or swapping it out? I think we just have to look at it from a market, more of a business perspective. Is like, hey, we're just starting off, right? And so you got to go where we can just ramp volumes and sell units. And so that's probably the scope at which they're looking at this over time. Does that change as we get into more sophisticated buyers that want to do that in mass? Sure, I think it's a potential. It's not like a technical capability that's not there. We can certainly do it.
Is there any chance we're going to see the Circle? Is there any chance that the Circle is actually going to happen as a PC, or is the Circle just like? So how did the Circle Okay, I need to explain to the viewers about the Circle. Sadly, I do not have the Circle here, but if you go look at that Snapdragon logo on my shelf, okay, imagine if that Snapdragon logo was a PC. At Snapdragon Summit, we were showing various concept PC models we had, but the one that really grabbed people's attention was this disc, and it was really thin, and it was a red circle, and it was just about the size of a large coaster, really. Yeah. And it had a Snapdragon X Elite, X2 Elite, and it was cooled by Furore air jets, which was also particularly amazing. Peter, do you have any information as to like what the genesis of that was? How did that happen? And could it become real?
Yeah, I think what's so remarkable, right, is we know how to deliver high performance, low power computing, right, with incredible thermals, right? I mean, keeping the device temperatures lower, can continue to increase that performance over time. I mean, we've seen this in countless examples and benchmarks where our sustained performance is incredible. And so if you think about how do we push the limits of what a device form factor can be? Why does it have to be these thick, form factors that are pretty prevalent out there?
Why does a mini PC have to be the size of a hardcover book?
Exactly. So we do that better. We Qualcomm as a company do that better than anything, right? We design our solutions for the ecosystem to scale, and so pushing the boundaries of what we can do with the form factor is certainly something that we want to bring to the ecosystem, right? Our ability to deliver all of these capabilities and help our customers, our OEM customers, deliver more modern experiences, more modern devices, more modern form factors. Who wouldn't want that, right? So that was the point of showcasing our capability across a range of devices, right? It wasn't just the disk, but we had an ultra thin laptop. We had an ultra thin detachable 2-in-1. We had all-in-ones, and this capability of taking the other thin and light PC. It was a square, but also very thin, docking straight into your monitor as an all-in-one. And so showing this range of devices, I think is important to show the ecosystem what we can do and how we can bring innovation to the space. Talking to a couple of longtime Windows reporters at Summit, they commented to me, this is first time in decades that people have been excited again about Windows PCs, and they attribute that to Snapdragon. So I couldn't be more excited to see these range of form factors to show off. And you mentioned the partnership with Fora and how we can help push that limit of performance and thermals even farther. I certainly hope to see some of these devices in market. It's just a matter of which customers want to take the leap with us. I think there's a lot of opportunity to be had.
That's great. Now, guys, as we finish up, are there any resources that you would like to point developers to about the new platforms as they're interested? I know the first 8 Elite Gen 5 phones are actually hitting now. There have already been announcements in outside North America from Xiaomi, iQOO, Honor. I've missed one or two, I'm sure. And then we've had an announcement for North America from OnePlus, and there's been no announcement from Samsung, but we had a Samsung guy on stage with us, so you can draw whatever conclusions you want from that. So those devices are already coming out, and then the X2 Elite devices are going to come out in the first half of next year. Where should developers go to prepare?
Yeah, developer.qualcomm.com. That's got all the resources. If you are a member and you have been going to the site, you've probably seen just in the last 6 to 12 months the number of tools and the seriousness with which this team is maintaining that platform and supporting it. We've really raised the bar, and I think we're super focused on helping our developers be successful, leverage the tools that we have available, and as we've said throughout the call, tackling those tough issues that you guys are bringing to light to us. We value that feedback. We appreciate the support and the enthusiasm for Snapdragon. We see this as a community. We're in this together to push the boundaries of innovation, whether that is hardware with our customers or software with our developer partners, like the folks on this podcast today. We value your feedback, and we request continue to push us. We want to make this thing amazing.
Great. How about from you, Jerry?
Yeah, so from me, definitely check out Qualcomm AI Hub, right? This is our own, model, library set, and then obviously with other tools as well. Go straight to the NPU. That's our message. And Nexa AI, this is another alternative. If you want to, use the latest and greatest models, it's again available. Both of these are available for both of the platforms we announced at Summit. So please go check them out.
Terrific. Thanks a lot, guys. I'm really excited for these new platforms. Can't wait to get my hands on them. Can't wait to see developers get their hands on them and see what they create. This has been Constellation for September. And thank you all for watching, whether you're watching synchronously or asynchronously. You can, of course, join me and our team of experts on the Qualcomm Developers Discord, or join me and our team of amateurs on the Qualcomm Insiders Discord. Constellation will return next month in October. I'm working on something very special for October that I can't quite tell you about yet, but I think it is going to be really interesting. So keep it tuned, keep watching the Discord, keep watching our social media feeds at Snapdragon and at Sascha Segan, and we'll connect with you soon.
All right.
Thanks for having us.